Yo, boys, welcome back to Star Spangled Gamblers. It is the beginning of fall. It is a tempestuous season, also a tempestuous time in political gambling, but green shoots in the form of a new exchange that I'm sure most of you have heard about. Insight, I call it Insight Predict. Doug Campbell, CEO of Insight Prediction, is here with us today. I didn't really give you much of an introduction, Doug. Do you want to just introduce yourself and tell me if I even got the name of your product right? You know, we all have a shorthand in this business. Like, how are you? Welcome to the show. It's been a while.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's it's fulfilling a lifelong dream to appear on Star Spangled Gamblers. So my name is Doug Campbell, and so yes, I'm the founder of Insight Prediction. So basically, I'm a PhD economist. When I was an undergrad at Boston College, my senior year, I had this amazing professor, and I thought he did a very good job, and so I felt like I also want to do that. I want to become a college professor, so I went to UC Davis. I did a PhD, and then also went and worked at the Council of Economic Advisors in Washington, D.C. So how did I get into Insight Prediction? So basically, after a few years in academia, I kind of got a little bit disillusioned with kind of all the bullshit that you have to deal with in academia. I feel like most of the research is not really, very good. So most academics, they kind of act like they're saving the world. But in fact, when you look at their research, you see that, they're taking a lot of shortcuts. They're doing a lot of p-hacking. Their research is not that good.
P-hacking.
And so I just got very disillusioned. Yeah. And then so the second thing that happened was that during the pandemic, I started trading. And so when the pandemic started, basically, I took all of my wealth and I put it in put options. And then actually the first day after I bought all these put options, the market actually snapped back. It went back up. And so I was down 50%. But then the following Monday, I got lucky. The market opened limit down. And then I think it might have gone limit down a second time. And then suddenly I doubled my wealth overnight. So that was the second thing. And then later that fall, basically, the election came around. I think a lot of people in the prediction market space also made money on Biden. I got lucky in that I bet on Biden on this website called BetMoose, where you can bet in Bitcoin. And so I got Biden as an underdog. I took basically half of my net worth, put it on Biden in Bitcoin as the underdog. And the other half, I was betting on the vaccine. So basically I bet in the oil markets. I had a bunch of oil calls and some other, kind of travel and other kinds of calls. And so it was kind of a rough night on election night because what had happened is that the timing of my, oil trades were a little bit premature. And so oil in October had just gotten clobbered. And so at one point I was down 90% on my oil calls. And of course, on election night, 2020, I don't know if you remember, Nate Cohn's needle at some point had Trump running away with Georgia. And so it looked like for a time that Trump was also going to win. So it looked like I was going to be broke, totally broke at some point. But then Nate Cohn fixed his needle at some point, and we saw that Trump was only down up I think 0.6% in Georgia, and so Biden was going to be fine. And then a week later, Pfizer came out with its stage 3 trial results. And so, then my oil calls started to go up by 30% per day. And so some of them actually rebounded, I think 85-1 after the low. And then it was because as a trader, I was kind of frustrated with, I like to bet on sports on occasion. I like to bet on the U.S. men's national team. I like to bet on the Colts games on occasion. I also like to trade politics. I like to trade stocks, also options. And these are all on separate websites where, it can be such a hassle to send money to some offshore shit bookie, my bookies of the world, to bet on sports. Then you got to get it. If you want to bet, at Predict It, you got to get your money back to the banking system. To get your money out of Predict It, it takes a week, and you pay 5% fees. And then to get it even between in and out of poly market also is not that easy. And so basically the vision with insight prediction is that we want to be kind of a one-stop shop where you can bet on, you can bet on your favorite sporting team, you can short doggy coin, you can bet on politics, and you could also, buy GameStop, tokenized stocks as well. So one thing I was also not happy at when I was trading stocks was that every time that there's a big trading day, Schwab shuts down essentially. Anytime you have a high volume, their trading system can't handle it. Right? And then just general frustration at the banking system. And so basically I have this kind of Napoleonic vision for insight prediction that it looks like there's a lot of bad actors in the financial and banking space, just sending money internationally, it's such a hassle. There just needs to be more innovation.
So you sound sort of kind of like the Marianne Williamson of prediction market vision in the sense that I'm giving you a little tongue in cheek here, but almost like prediction markets were like a self-help thing for you. Like you discovered prediction markets and they changed your life, and here you are now with a newer and better and more perfect prediction market, insight prediction. By the way, I'm not a user, so maybe you can sell me in the course of this podcast, but you've got a newer and fresher vision so that people can find sort of similar success as a trader with greater ease. Or I don't know, is that like the marketing ticker tape, and or am I being too sly here?
Yes, I think we do at least some things better than anyone else. There are a few markets on insight prediction, I think, that are on Predicted, for example, that are not on Polymarket. We have a way more sports than Polymarket does, for example. If you like to bet on sports and politics, and we now have a bunch of economics markets up. If you want to bet on CPI, GDP, you can bet on it. We often have liquidity on these markets on hours where Kalshi doesn't have them. If you don't live in the US and you want to participate in some of these markets that are on Predicted and Kalshi but are not on Polymarket, you can come to Insight Prediction to bet on them.
Let me ask. So let's go down a couple roads here, and I don't know you. I feel like we all know each other in this community. But recently we posted a sort of a meme. We're big meme artists here from the show Succession, and we depicted you guys. Well, do you watch Succession on HBO? Can I ask you that first?
I do not actually. I'm not familiar.
Well, we thought you were the cousin Greg, but that's that would be like the Kramer, or maybe like the Arya from the game, from Game of Thrones. Do you feel like those are fair portrayals of your business interests?
I would take Arya. I would take Arya as being kind of a fair portrayal for sure.
Yeah, smarter, a little edgier, doesn't fit in, but is going to. Arya she kills the Night King, right? There's a lot of hope and a lot of aspiration in Arya. Even if she's not a boy, she does better than the boys. So I think that's a compliment.
Yeah, for sure. I'll take it.
Okay. Well, okay. So I'm going to talk about my biography for a second here. I don't usually talk about myself that much. So one of the things I learned in my career, I was working for Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street at the time. And one of the things he teaches about...
No way.
Yeah.
True?
Yeah, true. True. Yeah, I work for the Wolf. One of the things the Wolf teaches you about sales is you really need to answer people's objections up front. I mean, it's okay if you have to, handle a little back and forth later on, but the sooner you answer them, the better. So let me ask you this, okay? Let's answer some objections up front. First of all, your name is Doug Campbell, right? That's true, isn't it?
Yes, that's true. My full name is Douglas Campbell. I use Doug for short, but yeah, that's true.
Douglas. Honestly, even worse. I'm thinking 2022, woke 2022, you might as well be named Chad McBonerface. People just don't want to deal with Dougs. They don't want to deal with Douglases. You studied at UC Davis. I think that's basically communism. You were an economics professor in Russia. Some of this stuff is cool. Some of it's going to be weird to people. So what makes you trustworthy to handle our money?
I have a very interesting biography. I think there's, So there's a few things. So one thing, I mean, I think it's fair enough that if you have a brand new website, there should be questions. And one thing, we would like to add a bunch of kind of like indications of credibility, things like, having, known quantities back us. But, the big thing will just be building credibility through our actions over time. And so we've, now we have 6 months of history of, paying people out. One thing we are in the process of doing is getting incorporated in Delaware. So we'll have an actual entity that people could go to and sue with my name on it, if they have a big problem. I think one thing we can do is just, be competent and treat our customers well, resolve markets in a timely manner, make just decisions, be competent. The other thing is just like it's, with my CV, with my background, I have a PhD in economics. I worked at the President's Council of Economic Advisors. I have 7 academic publications. And I'm hoping to do more research actually on prediction markets and continuing to publish. I'm in the process of relocating to Washington, D.C. And in part because of, as you guys know, the regulatory issues in the US, it just makes a lot of sense for me to be near regulators in the US. But also it's something that could establish a bit of credibility rather than, after this special operation happened, I left Russia almost immediately. And I was just kind of floating around. I was in Puerto Rico for a while. I was thinking about incorporating the company there for a bit. I didn't like Puerto Rico that much. I was also spent some time in Indiana, spent some time in South America, but I think it's probably better for the company and better for our reputation as well. If we, if I put down roots in Washington, D.C., I think it's also better for the company if all of my employees are in one place and we're not on Zoom all the time. I think, it's not a big difference, but it's when you have a startup, everything matters, everything counts. We're also hiring this guy, Pratik, who I think is quite credible. So we just announced this. We're hiring Pratik.
Wait.
So be in Washington, D.C.
So Pratik, what's like
breaking some news here at SSG?
Am I on my own now? Like, what's going on?
No. I don't think he could ever leave you, to be honest.
Oh, I don't think the same Pratik guy. Pete, PJ, tell the boys what's going on.
Yeah, that's true. Doug reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested in working there. I knew about Doug, obviously his background and so forth, and I'm not currently trading on Insight Prediction, but I really like the site. I reference it quite a bit. And I think especially with the situation, how it's evolving in the space, I think we need a lot of new actors coming in and innovating. So I have confidence in Doug and the team, and ultimately am bullish long-term on the space as well.
Wait, so what do you do? But what do you, do you know your job description yet? Do I need to have a going away party for you?
No going away party.
Is it because you don't like parties?
In part, yes. But more importantly, I will not be going away.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm going to start out on a part-time basis, and we'll just sort of see where the job goes, I think.
Excellent. Well, so you got Doug, you got a Pratik in your quiver. I saw you have a LinkedIn page now. I have seen many credible companies have LinkedIn pages. So it sounds like maybe you'll be my neighbor in Washington, D.C. sometime soon. We can sort of cry about how boring it is there, but do exciting things in the political sphere. So sounds like a great deal to come. Let me ask you this. I feel like we can't have a conversation about your venture without sort of talking big picture. It's definitely a difficult era in political gambling. Not really a secret that there's been a lot of knife fighting between different companies, the industry as we know it, and the federal government. So what do you think? What's your assessment? You're sort of taking a different path here to launching a prediction market. But from the outside in, does it look like this industry is in sort of an existential fight for survival, or do you think this is kind of just mean girls hair pulling between some of the incumbents right now?
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely did. When I was first started this, there was no Kalshi, and part of the appeal originally was thinking that, well, the poly market looks like it's just being left alone so far. And so if I could have, gone after US consumers that easily, that would have been amazing. Of course, we changed legal strategies after the CFTC kind of came down on poly market. And so now we've adopted basically the identical legal strategy to what poly market is doing.
Which is what, like no rules, but no US users?
Essentially no US users. Also, we ban other OFAC sanctioned countries, so we don't have an issue with the Treasury Department.
Yeah, seems wise.
Yeah. So I did, and part of the research I was doing, I looked at it took the CFTC like 12 years to actually go after InTrade.
Yeah.
Back in the day. So I used to trade on InTrade. And it took 12 years and not longer, because the InTrade repeatedly asked the CFTC for clarification.
Yeah.
And then finally, the CFTC responded to InTrade's repeated inquiries. So that's why it only took 12 years for them to act. Also, last year, they were bringing cases against people for stuff that happened in 2012.
Yeah.
So usually they act very slowly. So it was eye-opening to say the least, to see how quickly they acted against Polymarket. I think eye-opening. The other thing is that, Kalshi with this guy who comes from Palantir, which, they have done very well with their close government relations. And Kalshi's stated strategy, how much time they spent courting people, the CFTC, what happened with predicted. I think it's kind of clear, at least to me, what likely happened. And I think it's just Kalshi was taking a very smart strategy.
Well, hold on, but let me stop you there.
But, yeah.
Kalshi's also endorsed by the chain smokers. So are you sure that their strategy purely pivots on the CFTC?
No, I mean, if you raise 30 million in VC funding, you have a lot of money to do quite a lot. So I think they have gotten some very good press. I think maybe not as much as predicted has, in fact, where you have a lot of journalists and whatever, they're writing an article about the election, they cite predicted, but so far, you don't see a lot of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, we have definitely been,
yeah.
We've been courting a chain smokers endorsement since we saw that come through too. I think Pratik and I both agree that is really the missing piece for Star Spangled Gamblers to be a household brand, is getting a couple tweets from the chain smokers. So
I think totally for us, I've been spending most of my time on product development, and soon we're going to have a flurry of new product improvements in the product that are coming out that we're working on hard now. I think for most people who bet in these prediction markets, you want two things. You want interesting questions, and you want a lot of liquidity. And so we're focused now on making a bunch of new bots which can provide liquidity in kind of a more cost-effective manner, and which we'll be able to offer a lot more markets and a lot more liquidity. So I'm focused on that now. I think after that, the plan is to figure out ways where we can go viral, right? Where we can market for cheap. It's just I just don't have the bandwidth so far to really focus on marketing. And I think once I do that, I think we will grow. And we've been growing, but I think we'll grow even faster.
Well, I haven't seen Zed or Tiesto endorse a prediction market yet, so you might have an opportunity there. But I do think you missed one thing that traders want. Yeah. They want comments boards to talk trash to each other. Is that on your roadmap?
So we have actually on our markets, we do have Discus. So actually on our market pages below, just like Predicted does. So we have this. I think part of the issue, a lot of our traders now post on our Discord, and so not everyone posts on Discus. There's kind of conversations on both. But yeah, we do have this. And I actually think comments boards are an important part of prediction markets. If I was going to go bet on a market, I would want to check out what other traders are writing about it. Okay, right. Some of them might be pumping, some of them might be giving disinformation, but I actually want to see what kind of disinformation they're pumping into the market, what they're linking, so I can read those sources and judge it for myself.
Right.
I think the interaction is actually an important part of price discovery. So yeah, but of course there is some fraud, there is some pumping, but this is part of the fun of prediction markets. I think if prediction markets get regulated out of, if comment sections get regulated out of existence, it would be a bad thing.
Yeah,
for prediction markets.
Don't step on my First Amendment right to talk trash, CFTC. Pratik, I'm talking too much. Do you want to get me off the hook here for a second?
Well, on the regulatory side, as I think many people know, if you go on Insight Prediction, I believe the site is unique in that you actually offer two markets on the current situation with Kalshi and Predicted. So there's the market, will Kalshi offer a US election market by October 25th? The yes is trading at 31%. And then there is also a separate market on Predicted, which I will pull up. But I guess I would be interested, Doug, in, what have you seen following these markets? Like, what is it telling you about sort of the state of the industry? The other market is, will Predicted survive? The yes here trading at 21%. So it seems like traders on Insight Prediction are relatively pessimistic, but maybe a little bit more optimistic about Kalshi. But I guess a two-part question. I mean, one, what have you noticed tracking these markets about trader sentiment regarding the space? And then what is your own view as an operator and leader in the space on how the regulatory situation will go down?
So yes, I guess at least initially, I was a bit more optimistic on Kalshi getting their, having their connections at the CFTC pay off and getting the ability to have these markets. So my interpretation was kind of maybe the CFTC is shutting down Predicted so they can award these markets to Kalshi in a more regulated environment than just the no action letter. And so that's kind of what I thought. The market was basically against me. And there were, I will have to say, the people who are trading are anonymous, but it looked to me like it was pretty smart traders thinking that, no, it's unlikely actually that Kalshi is going to, Kalshi is going to be awarded these markets. And so if you combine the yes on Kalshi and the yes on Predicted, you get to about 50%. So it's basically a coin flip on will there be regulated political gambling, still after this year or not. It's probably actually higher than that because we don't have a market yet on will Predicted be awarded a DCM. And so, but there's some other things here, which is that I think you actually made this point originally that, Predicted has a bunch of people who use it on the Hill. Maybe they're friends with Congress people, they're friends with influential people, maybe some of them are influential people, they're probably going to submit comments to the CFTC. And so probably the CFTC will be influenced by that. So I kind of think that maybe Predicted will probably survive in some form, but whether they'll be forced to move it into a DCM and change their regulatory conditions, I don't know. Also, it might just look bad for Kalshi or for the CFTC if they take this away from Predicted and then award it to Kalshi, given kind of the close connections.
That seems sus to me. I don't think they'll do. Well, I don't know. What's my opinion worth? But
yeah, and so the market is also saying that. So I mean, you can get better than 3-1 betting yes in Kalshi. So yeah, the market does seem to be saying it's unlikely. Seems unlikely that happens, and that also seems unlikely that the CFTC reverse itself. So I really don't know how this is going to play out. I tend to believe the markets. I think we do have smart market participants. So I think probably the probabilities you see there are going to be roughly accurate.
And obviously the site is growing, it's new, but where would you say where are your traders coming from right now? Obviously, if the American market is at least formally off limits, where are most of your traders based around the world?
So I don't know where everyone is from. I know there's someone with a Chinese sounding name trading in the China-related markets. I know we have some new ethnically Russian users. who are taking positions and kind of like pro-Russian positions. I don't know where they're located. I know we have a few people in Eastern Europe, and
They're
probably because
they're
we
hedging
have a
their
lot
life
of
expectancy in Kherson right now.
yeah. So we have a couple of markets on Kherson. Will Ukraine take Kherson by October 25th? So we've seen some, and another one by September 15th. We've seen some decent action in those markets. We always have a lot of war-related markets.
Are you just
will
like
Russia
a big war
advance
guy,
our
or
best? I mean, I was just very interested. I mean, so especially since I was in Moscow when the war
Oh yeah, yeah,
started,
yeah.
I was just extremely interested in it. And we had a bunch of war markets. The original kind of big market we had, will Russia invade Ukraine? We did like $350,000 in volume in like a week.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of been an area that we focused on, whereas poly market has fewer of these markets. So we tried to, pick what are the most interesting and relevant policy related markets related to the war, and let's make those. But
Yeah. Well, that makes
yeah.
sense. And like those were I thought those poly market lines that were really interesting, and some of the better trades that we made this year, but unofficially we did not make those trades. That's cool. Well, can I ask you the Ken Bone question? Do you remember Ken Bone?
No, I don't know who that is.
He was the big I think it was 2016. He was the or maybe it was 2012. He was the big fat guy in the red sweater, and so now he's like a sort of social media celebrity because he still wears his red sweater everywhere. It's Ken Bone, and he asked the question of I want to say it was Hillary and Trump. Can you give each other a compliment? And so I was wondering, like, what attributes of the prediction markets that have come before you, like, are there any that you sort of admire and want to build on or emulate, or is there anything?
Yeah, for sure. I think all of them have been good. So Predicted, I think, did a great job with having a lot of users, and there wasn't always kind of a ton of liquidity, but Predicted is trustworthy essentially. They did have a lot of cool political markets. Usually there was, at least in the more important markets, they did have a lot of liquidity, so you could always trade. So they did a lot of things well. I think, let's see, Polymarket has a bunch of very interesting markets. I think that's what they do really well, and they also have 24/7 liquidity. On the downside, I think it can be complicated. A lot of people who use the site don't know the so-called LP dump trick. And to do the LP dump trick, to trade with the minimum fees, it might take you a full minute. So I'm an impatient person. I don't like to wait a full minute for a trade to happen.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of error messages on Polymarket that could be cleaned up. And so a lot of those things exist because Polymarket's on the blockchain. I think it gives them a lot of problems. And with their decentralization, you see this also with UMA resolution, that kind of the UMA resolution process can be gamed. And it's because of like the decentralized nature of it. I think it was kind of a cool idea, but maybe it just needs to be tweaked. With Kalshi, I guess, you could say that I guess they have very good corporate lawyers. I think they're sharp business people as well. And I think they also have a lot of cool markets, very interesting. And they've also, they've innovated. They have taker fees and no maker fees, whereas Predicted used to just charge profit fees.
Right.
And I think it's much more efficient. And so this is something we've done. Actually, we've gone one step further. Now we have taker fees, and we have actually maker subsidies, which means if you go and put up liquidity first in the market and someone matches your trade later, you not only pay no fees, you actually get a subsidy for this.
Oh, nice.
And then if you go as a taker,
Well, can you talk about that for a second? So how do you actually, as someone, you're literally talking to someone who's very interested in your website. How do I actually put money on your website? Do I have to get on a plane? Second, can I use like fiat currency, or do I have to go buy some weird blockchain currency? Like what is the actual loading of money onto Insight Prediction like?
Yeah, so there's like three things you could do. So the easiest way is you can deposit with various kinds of stable coins on several different chains. So you can deposit using USD coin, which I think is one of the safer stable coins, either on the Polygon chain, which is what Polymarket uses, or on the Solana chain, which is also very cheap. So these are Solana and Polygon they're pretty low fee coins. If you send from the website, if you have an FTX account, and then you send from FTX, you should have no fees on depositing or withdrawing. So that's pretty cool. Also, if we're a small site still, so if you're not comfortable with crypto, then you can just send me PayPal. Probably at this
full
point,
service.
You can send a bank transfer if need be, and that's fine too.
Well, I've been wagering in Arby's sandwiches lately. Can I just send you some Arby's sandwiches?
Yeah, why not? So one thing as well, when we get these USD DC deposits, what we do is we convert them all into fiat dollars.
Okay.
And so if something crazy happens with crypto, we'll be fine. So we have actual fiat currency backing this. So
got it.
So the one thing we do offer now, which is different. So there, long-term prediction markets, there's always been this kind of well-known bias that, if there's a market about 2024 right now, these markets tend to be biased towards 50-50. So if you look on Polymarket right now, people who are unlikely to win the election are trading much higher than they should be. So like Kanye West, I think was at 6 or 8 cents or something. Right. And it's just because, if you're betting no on Kanye West to win the 2024, Republican nomination, you're gonna have to wait 3 years, you're gonna have to wait a couple of years for your money to pay off. And so even if you think 8% is too high, you're not gonna bet against that. But if you're betting in Bitcoin or Ethereum or maybe in SPY tokenized stocks, and you want to hold the coin anyway, then you can get an additional yield on top of this. And so we actually have markets in various kinds of cryptocurrencies as well. It's not the main focus of the website, but we do have a few of these markets for kind of long-term markets where we think we can provide more accurate estimates of what these probabilities really are. So it's another way that we're debating.
It sounds like Pratik and I say this. We don't say this on the show, but we say it offline, like as a compliment. It's like he's a degen at heart. Sounds like you're a degen at heart. You understand your customers. That can take you far in life. Pratik, do you want to take us home?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, I guess I wanted to close on just some practical betting insights. I think one of the specialties of sorts at Insight Prediction is Russia-Ukraine markets. And I think most of our users right now are on Predicted. They're also looking at this issue in the sense of how long Russian President Putin and the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, will survive. The interesting thing is I think the prices on Insight Prediction are meaningfully different. It seems like the traders on your site are a bit more optimistic about both of these leaders surviving than on Predicted. Do you, kind of as an authority on Russia, Ukraine, do you have a view on how long these leaders might make it?
Yeah, I tend to think, if you look at the history of these kinds of markets, I think there's a historical bias of, will X remain in office? Unless there's an election coming up or something like this, they tend to be biased. Also, they tend to be long-term markets. And of course, as we already discussed, long-term markets on all prediction markets tend to be biased towards 50-50. And partly this is because there are huge capital costs. Prediction market users have very high discount rates. And so for this, you can basically get a risk-free return of 14 or 15% betting on Trump not to be president. And so given that, how high could Putin trade on Polymarket, given that you can get maybe a 5 or 6% return betting on Trump to still be president at the end of the year? how much can you get betting on Putin to be president? Well, if Putin was trading the same as Trump, then no one would take Putin in that situation. You would bet on Trump to not be president.
Right.
And so really the implied probability of Putin not being president at the end of the year on Polymarket, last I saw, I think it was like maybe 8 or 9% chance of Putin not being president. But given that Trump was at 6%, actually the implied probability is really more like 3% chance that Putin is not president at the end of the year. So my view on that, as someone who knows Russia, is that Putin is one of the most careful people I've ever seen public life. When he would not fly in helicopters, he would instead go through Russian traffic, or Moscow traffic, rather than fly in helicopters because he's worried about getting shut down. He spent 2 decades making his presidency regime proof. During COVID, he would make one of his best friends quarantine for 2 weeks just to see him. I think everyone's seen the pictures of him at those long tables with, like the head of France sitting 30 feet away because he's so COVID cautious. I think there is very little opposition in Russia to whatever he wants to do. And he's paranoid. I think it might be one of the reasons he invaded is because he wanted another big, he thought they would win, and he thought he needed another big win in war to keep his position as president, maybe. But no, he has very little opposition. I think he's also healthy. So I've seen these videos about his shaking hand and all this, but I'm just not convinced I really saw anything there. I think he probably does have some health problems. There's a lot of rumors at this point, but I don't think there's anything that's really been substantiated. He doesn't smoke or drink. He's extremely careful with his health. He's surrounded by doctors. I think maybe he has a 1 or 2% chance of dying this year.
Yeah, actually the prices on Polymarket and Insight Prediction are fairly close. They're giving Putin around a 92-93% chance of making it to the end of the year. I think on Predict It actually is the attractive price you can buy yes on Putin surviving at 88%. I think that's probably a bit low. And do you have a view on
that's good?
Yeah. Do you have a view on Lukashenko? Or?
Yeah, so Lukashenko, I guess one thing to say is he's not nearly as healthy as Putin. But if Putin has a 1% chance of dying, then maybe Lukashenko has a 2% chance of dying. And so we're talking now about the next less than 4 months is how long they need to survive. That's not much time. I tend to think Lukashenko is undervalued as well, just as every other market on this topic, even about other people, have been in the past. A few years ago in Predict It, I think in like 2016, they had a Putin, will Putin be president at the end of 2016? And I remember it was trading at like 94 cents in June or something. Right? And obviously, so 6 years later, Putin is still with us. Obviously, that 94-cent market was also undervalued, I think. Well, maybe it's not obvious, but I think it probably was. And so I tend to think these kinds of markets in general are undervalued. It's just, relative to, at time, though, I have seen the Lukashenko market on Polymarket has been trading at less. You could get a smaller return than you could by betting on Trump. Right, and so that's not a good deal. Right? I would want at least an additional 2 or 3% on Lukashenko relative to the Trump market. I'm not sure you get that now. So that's my feeling. But Lukashenko for sure is more likely to have a health issue than Putin is.
I feel like you're just on a whole other level here. Like that PhD in economist said, whatever you're just talking about trading in 2020. I'm like frankly in awe of how fluently this stuff comes off your lips. You don't have to drool on yourself for a half an hour making a shitty spreadsheet the way I do. So congratulations. I have a lot to learn from you.
Thanks. Well, I have to say that one thing whenever I've tried to model a market and bet on it, it didn't go so well. So there was a COVID market back in the day. I think it was a vaccination, the 100 million vaccination market. And I made a model for it, and it did not. My model said we were going to get 200 million, and we didn't. actually.
Yeah.
And so I remember I lost money on that one. So
Yeah, I feel like there's a whole literature to read
Oh.
on trusting your instincts versus trusting data.
Yeah.
Doug, I think actually this is something I should know about, but I don't. But I think we're launching a promotion with you, if that's correct. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know that you guys are just getting off the ground, so I don't even know if there are like any bonuses or anything for traders. But we are supplying a link to sign you up for Insight Prediction. I think we get a little bit of credit for it. And anything that you can say at this point to incite traders to join, I will give you the last word. We certainly enjoyed this conversation and hope to have you back again sometime soon.
Yeah, let's do this. So we basically, if you can put a link below the podcast, if users can click on that link, and then also come and if they make a deposit, and also hit us up either on Twitter or send us an email at support@insightprediction.com. And we can kind of verify that they look like new users, they look like real people, either via their Twitter, whatever, their Discord, persona, or whatever. We will give people a $50 bonus for a $100 deposit, under the understanding that they're going to trade with it, not just withdraw immediately. So we can do that.
All right. So step one, click on link that we'll supply. Step 2, email support@insightprediction.com. Is that the right email address?
Yep.
Verify identity. Step 3, get $50 bonus. Sounds good to me.
Exactly. And so if someone doesn't click on the link and they email us for the bonus and say, hey, we heard about you on the podcast, we'll also give you guys credit for this.
Oh, wow. You're getting into a dangerous business. But we're glad you are. We're all in a dangerous business here. I will be... that's the cheesiest thing in the world. I will just say I'm happy that you've been here. I'm happy that your room has gone from fully lit to completely dark in the course of this podcast.
Yeah, the sun went down here. Yeah.
All right, Doug Campbell, Insight Prediction. Thank you for joining the boys.
All right, thanks a lot. Take care.